What's going on, everybody? Willie here, good old Wanna Go Fishing. What are we talking about today? Today we are going to talk about spin cast reels. Why are we going to talk about them? Because the question has come up again. And it does come up quite often, to be honest with you. Why spin cast reels, Willie? Why? Why? What is the fascination? What is the alluring factor? Number one, I used them growing up. That's a lot to do with it. So, you know, as we get older, we tend to revert back to what we know, what we're really good at. I was really good with these reels, with the spin cast reels. I was very good with them. I was good at taking them apart, putting them back together, making them work, making them function, and I still am today. At least I feel like I am, because I have a lot of them that didn't work and do now. So you tell me, do the math. I'll wait. Anyway, that's the first reason. The second reason is I've always been a fan of the underdog, and the spin cast reel really in the world of fishing is the underdog. It's just all there is to it. No other way to look at it. They've been called everything. I mean, they get called the Barbie Snoopy reels. They get, the old man reels, old people reels, that kind of stuff. And maybe that's true. But there's a lot of you out there, I've been noticing, I get a lot of comments on a lot of the other videos that I've done on spin cast reels. A lot of that younger generation is out there going, hey, I'm finding these things in yard sales, flea markets, my uncle's tackle box, however, wherever, and you're interested in them, and you're actually using them. You're taking them out there and you're using them, and that's great. So I'm going to show you some of my favorites and why they are. And then I might show you a couple things to look for if you're out there and you find one. You never know. First off, go with one of my favorite companies. And I'm not starting off with Zebco. A lot of people probably think I am. Even though I love Zebco, Zebco was really, really the beginning. That is where you started with the old Zebcos, the 33s, the Model 11s, the 22s, the 308s, the 404s, whatever that you may have started out with. But that's not where I'm starting at, because I really don't use them like I used to. Because I found that I was more of, how will I say this, a more refined spin cast user. What do I mean by that? This, I'm ducking down, is a Johnson Century 100. I'm going to spin it around so you can take a look at it here. Because this camera likes to focus on my eyeballs, so I got to turn it around there. Now, this is kind of where it all began. Actually, the model, if you go before these, there's a couple, the Model 60, Model 80, that were sidewinders that actually, the line came out of the side. You've seen one of those, I did a video on it. But these guys here, the reason I liked these guys so much was their versatility. It was amazing what you could do with these things. You could put them on a regular spin cast rod and use your thumb, reel it in. You could take these screws out on the sides right here, and you could change the plates from one side to the other. You could retrieve with your left hand, retrieve with your right hand, and with this switch right here, you could switch right to left, this black switch here, and change the retrieve direction. So that way, if you wanted, say, like I do, put it on a fly rod, put it on the bottom, you could actually put this on the bottom, where you could take your hand, click it, grab the line, which I usually just grab with my right hand, and you were reeling away. The only other thing you usually had to do when you did with that is you have to flip the spool over. If you already have line on it. Now, if you don't already have line on it, you don't have to flip the spool over, and you just change the retrieve direction, change your plates from one side to the other, and then you can just put your line on. You're done. Now, that's the Model 100. That was one of my very favorites. But now, the first one that I ever really used when it came down to it, the very first one was what I used to call the copper top, which is your Garcia Mitchell or Abu Garcia or Abumatic 120. That was the very first one I ever used. And I remember it belonged to a relative, and my mother got it and allowed me to use it. Now, this is a very unique reel, and it works really well. I have it on a very old rod right now just because it's a solid fiberglass Montague. What's a Montague something? Pup line. Pup line? I don't know. It's very hard to read because it's very old. But I put it on here because it really looks cool. And I have 2 of these. And this is kind of my backup in case the other one fails on me. Let's go there for just a second. You gotta have parts, people. Even if you find these things in terrible condition and somebody wants $2 or $3 or $4 for it, buy it. If you're into this, you'll need extra parts. So if $2 or $3 or $4, whatever, buy it, okay? I paid $5 for that one. Cleaned it up, it runs, works like a Swiss watch. I ain't kidding. But anyway, that was my very first one that I ever tried. Then I had some friends later on down the line that had a, hold tight. Is it over here? No. Is it over here? Where are you? Friend? Johnson Century 100B. That was the next one that I used. And I used it for a very long time, not realizing its capabilities. Still being able to switch back and forth, one side to the other. Still had the capability of putting it underneath here if you wanted to. But with this one, when you got to the 100s, like the A, Model A and B, you had this concave trigger mechanism, thumb mechanism. So it didn't work quite as well being flipped underneath like that. It still worked, but it just wasn't as comfortable as the 100s were. And that's the 100 either in the Citation 110 or the 100 that you saw in the Century. These things were so cool in their technology for the time frame. The Abomatic 170, for example. Let me tuck back here again. Now, the Abomatic 170, you were pretty much stuck with, you're reeling with your right hand whether you liked it or not. There weren't no switching back and forth. You could take it apart and all that and clean it. They worked really well. And they're very well made. They were made in Sweden. And they were great reels. Great reels. Now this one's got a little bit of a, what we like to call gear growl. And that is just from a whole lot of years with a whole lot of weight on the other end, and you're cranking on that thing and you wear the gear down to where it's got a little bit of an off-kilter feel to it. So a lot of times when there's a fish pulling on it, it doesn't growl as badly as it does when you're just sitting there reeling it. But that's part of the game. But that's another one of my favorites right there. The Abomatic 170. Now, I'm going to show you real quick one of my, where to go. It was right here. I know it was. Let's go with this one right here. It's in pieces at the moment, but I'm going to show you anyway. This is the Model 110 Citation. I'm going to duck back here so you can see it. That is the 110 Citation. Now, what makes this the 110 without any A, B's, or C's? I'll show you. Very flat thumb mechanism. The clicker, and when I say clicker, that's, hear that? Okay, you had a switch for that. This was the Citation, just a little bit bigger bell, little, you know, put a little more line on there, I'm sure. I'm sure the gear ratio was probably a little different. I've never really fully looked into that, but Shakespeare made some pretty cool stuff back in the day. The 1702. There was a 1700, but the 1700 had what we call the sawtooth bell, or the sawtooth spinner head, if you want to call it that. What brought the line in. It looked like a saw, you know, like it would cut through wood. This has the pin. The 1702 has your retrieval pin that pops out of the side. Another very good reel. If you find one, they are easy to clean, they're easy to work on, and you can take them out here and fish them to death. I love that one right there. Thanks to my buddy Dan Selvig. He got me interested more in the Shakespeares. Now let's talk about fix and repair kind of thing. Parts. If you find one of these things, I think I may have said this, buy it. If it's cheap enough, $3, $4, $5, $10, and it's in decent shape, or even if it's in terrible shape, take it apart if they'll let you look at it and whatever. You always need parts. Always. You're always going to need parts. If you use these things like I use these things, you're going to need one or two of them laying around. You're going to need one or two of them laying around. Because you're going to need parts. You're going to need one or two of them laying around. And some of them may be in pieces as such. I found a couple of them that were just pretty much destroyed and didn't have much of a choice. I had to buy them to get reels that I had here at the house to work. Now, I've got one here that has got an issue. And again, I really wish these were things that you could see. See that center shaft right there? See that piece right there? Well, that piece that goes around it, that is what allows the retrieval head, the spinner head, comes in there, and that is what pushes that pin outward. It's a different shape right there. You see it rides around it like a merry-go-round, and it pushes that pin out. Once you hit the button and you click it in, it allows it to drop down and it pushes that pin out. It's very hard to explain, and I know this camera is just not doing it any justice. But what we got to do is, I have a new one right here. This old one has a couple of unfortunate incidents have evidently happened there, and the ridge is not smooth anymore. It's got nicks in it. I'm going to try to take it out, show it to you, and we're going to put this one in here from another reel and hopefully make this one function and do what it's supposed to do again. Now, one of the things that I would like to make clear after further investigation is that on the 100 body, the Citation 100 body, this piece doesn't come off. It does not unscrew. This is all one piece except for a brass, is that brass or copper? It's brass sleeve that runs down the middle of this, which is why I can't unscrew it. After I got the looking underneath of it here, it doesn't unscrew. It's all one piece. So, which is why the 110 became the 110-A, and then it became the 110A, and then the 110B. That's why these things, you know, they made little subtle changes, things that they found needed to be changed. So with this one, this body is no good anymore. It's no good at all. Now, we're going to take a couple of parts off of here, which is going to be one, if you can see that little brass piece right there, that brass piece, I'm really hoping you can see it. That brass piece is actually your drag. That pushes against the inside of the plastic piece that forms around that this whole shaft and piece here, and that's your drag. You adjust this button. Is my hand in the way? You adjust that button. The further you spin it around, the more it pushes it out, and it pushes it up against the spool, and that's what makes the drag function. But it comes out really easy. All you got to do is just flip her backwards and take her right out. Starting to wonder if that's not a one piece. We might be completely rebuilding this reel from the ground up. That's the one we're going to go with. But the first thing we have to do is clean it up. And we're basically going to build a Johnson Citation, and it's going to be built from, I think this is a 110B body. This is a 110B body. And we're going to be putting a 110 internal housing, external housing, there's going to be a 110 in this. So there's going to be some holes that don't belong, but it's going to be on the inside and nobody's going to see it. So that's all I can tell you. We're going to make it work. No reel will be left behind. Well, some parts of it will, but let's go clean this up. I'll be right back. So what this has basically turned into is Citation, Johnson Citation Building 101. But I'm going to bring you down to the table here, and we are basically going to build a Johnson Citation 110 that is going to be in a 110B body, but it's going to be a 110, plain 110, that's going to go back in it. I'm going to show you, I don't know how many of these I actually got. The 100s, straight 100s, had a very smooth, see that's hard, there's just smooth. Well, later on down the line, when you got into the 100B, you got a racing stripe. And then of course you had the 100A, which had a little gripper. We're not going with the gripper, we're going with smooth because this is a straight 100 that's going back into a 100B body. So let's get to work here. We are really winging it here, people. Got to make sure we got all of our parts. I think we can make this work. I think we can make this work. That's going to go there. Now, when you also were dealing with the fact that there were two different color. In the 100, everything was green. When you got up into the 100-A, you ended up with black. Okay? That's not important in any way, shape, or form, but we're going with it. I was just explaining. So we're not going to be using the solid black one. We're going to put that over here to the side. We're going back with the green. Let's get this drag knob in here. Got to get that screwed in. Got the old flathead screw. You push out. You take your fingers and you push out like that. Then you can screw that in there tightly till it pulls up like it's supposed to. Okay, see how that screw now is sitting flush with the top? That's how that needs to be. Alright, so next we are going to put in this centerpiece that the shaft goes through. Going to put a little grease just on the threads. Alright, so now we've got our drag button on. We've got the shaft housing on, in, there. And I'm going to take a little grease and put it right here. If you can see the hole right in there, we're going to put that right there like that, so that grease, when that shaft goes through there, it'll have some grease up on it. Then we're going to take our shaft and our gear, that through there, and that is going to go right through there as such. Okay, there it goes. All right, we're good now. I was thinking I was going to have to put the daggone 100B trigger in here because it wasn't lining up. I'm going to take a little bit of Earl and we'll put it right there so that moves good for that. I don't know if you saw that or not, but anyway, I put a little oil on that brass shaft right there so that trigger works quite well now. Here's your plate, your name plate, and the clicker plate is going to go on here. And you got two screws right here that are going to go in there. Whoops, come back here. The old flathead screwdriver, you gotta love it. This spool on the 100 doesn't have the clicker. Okay, well if you look at this spool, there's little notches on the bottom. That's for the clicker. So we're gonna have to go with this spool on this reel to make it work correctly. But of course I gotta have all of the parts that belong to it. Which means now I got to take that out of there. That one's not going to work. That is totally different. That is your drag slide. We'll do a little bit of this here. And I'll wipe the excess off. So it appears that everything's working, and we're going to go, where's my lid? There's, I want the, that is the lid that we'll go back with. And there we have a completely refurbished, put back together Johnson Citation 100/100B. But it's working. There you go. I mean, it's doing its thing. So with this one, this body is no good anymore. It's no good at all. Which is sad, because if they'd have made that piece where it could be unscrewed, we could use this body just like we just did and build another reel out of it. But sadly, it's useless. What did we make? Franken-Reel. But it's working. So we're going to put some line on this thing. And I'm going to say maybe Saturday, maybe Sunday, maybe Thursday. Today's Thursday. Maybe Friday. Maybe somewhere down the road here, we're going to put this on a reel. Can't put it on a reel because it is real. We're going to put this on a rod, and I'm thinking a fly rod, and we're going to go catch some fish. Fish? So anyway, just remember guys, subscribe if you haven't. We're getting close to 1,000, very close. Want to see that? I want to see that number. Want to see 1,000. That's going to be fun. Hit the bell. Make sure you get those notifications when I do something new and unexpected, which is kind of mostly what I do all the time. And thank you guys for watching. I truly appreciate you. We'll see you on the next one, whatever the next one may be.